I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on rxmuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions, diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, news, whatever is on your mind, it is all on the tables. We now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, yesterday, another hilarious episode of the After Hours podcast. For those that have not watched the After Hours podcast over the last couple of weeks, they have missed the absolute evolution of Jimmy the Bull to Jimmy the Bull, the lead actor.
Yeah, Jimmy is, I think it's because he's on hormone replacement now. He's kind of becoming, you know how like when they have these like insects or these creatures that go dormant for like, or bacteria for like thousands of years, and then all of a sudden they're awakened by maybe the frosting them or whatever the case may be. It's like Jimmy. Jimmy has reawakened himself, and not only has he's like a virus that's spreading because he went from After Hours. Now he's trickled onto the Iron Rage show.
The Iron Rage, yeah.
Noticed. Him and Lee are like best friends now, so Lee's always wants him coming on there with him. So we're getting a lot of Jimmy the Bull lately, but all good stuff. All good stuff.
If you haven't already checked it out, check it out. Last couple of episodes has been absolutely off the hilarious. 2 episodes ago was Jimmy getting psychologized from a bodybuilder who's also a sports psychologist. And yesterday, I'll just set it up as such. Jimmy had his nuts examined by a hot female doctor. You're not going to guess what happened next. After Hours, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any future episodes. Let's go to the question. The first 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, I took a look at your joint supplement, Arthritis, and it seems to be the best out there. How does it actually help the joints, and what would it do for people with arthritis?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because there was a guy who came and had to do some work on the house, and he had got a knee replacement. He told me, and he's like been having a lot of trouble. This was a couple weeks ago, and I gave him a bottle. I always give like all the workers come here. I give them like supplements. I'm like, do you take any nutrition? I don't take anything. Take this 5 pills twice a day. And he called me up. He's like, after 2 weeks, he was like, I can't believe how much better my knee feels. It's not that there's any like a lot of times I have like super high quality ingredients. The ingredients in Arthritis are not that they're that special. It's the right dosage, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Glucosamine, and you know a lot of people think you need to use chondroitin sulfate in addition to glucosamine sulfate, but believe it or not, glucosamine actually converts to chondroitin. Now, we have some chondroitin in Arthritis, but you don't really need to put it in there at high amounts because your body can make what it needs from the glucosamine. So it's in my experimentation over the years, 4 grams or 4,000 milligrams of glucosamine per day is is ideal. You know, if you get more is better actually, but at least 4 grams. If you do 4 grams every day and you combine that with 4 grams of MSM, which is a methyl sulfonylmethane, it's a biologically available source of sulfur. Excuse me. Now, sulfur is necessary in the repair of joint connective tissue. It's one of those, it's one of those things that needs to be in there. What's interesting is it usually takes about 2 weeks before people actually notice something, and they're really not getting joint repair at that point. More so, they're getting lubrication because also, these glucosamine and chondroitin are like the precursors to the synovial fluid in the joint and connective tissue, which gives the lubrication to the joints. So you're getting repair and you're getting, lubrication. If you don't take enough of this stuff, it's like not eating enough protein. You could eat if you eat 100 grams of protein a day and you weigh 250, you're not going to probably put muscle on, right? Because you're just not eating enough. It doesn't mean that you're not doing the right thing. You're just not doing enough of the right thing, and that's what glucosamine is all about too. If you don't take enough of it, it doesn't do anything. Now the problem is you can't really mix scoops of glucosamine into a protein shake because it tastes absolutely gross. You would never be able to swallow, even me. I can swallow anything. You can't do it. It's terrible. So you got to take it in capsule form, and that's why you need so many capsules, because you can only put 1,000 milligrams in each capsule essentially. So, and even it's usually 750. So the point I'm making is it's a dose-dependent thing. Now, Arthrolyze also contains UC2 collagen, which is undenatured collagen type 2. Undenatured means it hasn't been heated or it hasn't been ruined. It's still in intact form. Comes from the sternum of chicken cartilage, and that for some reason happens to exactly mimic what we have collagen-wise in the human body. And what that does is when you eat that orally, that stuff, and you only need like 20 milligrams a day, what it does is it tells your immune system to lay off the connective tissue, the collagen. It basically desensitizes your immune system. I don't want to go into the full mechanism, it'll take the whole show, but it desensitizes the immune system, because a lot of times when people injure like a shoulder or a hip or an elbow, you might rub away some of the cartilage and expose the underlying collagen connective tissue, and now your immune system sees that as a foreign body and starts attacking it, trying to heal it, but it's actually creating more inflammation and it makes it hurt more. So by attenuating or lowering the immune reaction to that particular collagen, you're going to notice that your joint and connective tissue will heal at a much better rate. A lot of people, my surgeon, when I went for my shoulder replacement, said, I got to be honest with you, because I don't know how you lasted 20 years. You needed a shoulder replacement 20 years ago, because I showed him x-rays and stuff like that. And I told him all my symptoms. He's like, I don't think I know anyone who's lasted that long. And you continued to work out. I said, because I was taking very high dose glucosamine, which kept the lubrication there and it kept the repair process. So it kind of was delaying the degeneration. So to answer the question, one of the parts of the question was, does it help osteoarthritis? Absolutely, because osteoarthritis is a breakdown of the joint and connective tissue versus the autoimmune form of arthritis, which would be called rheumatoid arthritis, which is a completely different beast. Most of us suffer from osteoarthritis as we get older. Glucosamine in high dose will definitely help that.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, have you ever heard of Telmisartan? It's supposed to be a blood pressure medication that also lowers blood sugars and helps the liver.
Telmisartan is an angiotensin receptor blocker. It blocks angiotensin, these receptors that basically allow an enzyme to attach to a substance that converts it into another substance. I don't want to make it too complicated. Having said that, there are drugs that actually, let me clarify that. ACE inhibitors like ramipril, lisinopril, which is what I take as a blood pressure medication, inhibit the enzyme conversion. Angiotensin receptor blockers block receptors, so they don't allow the final product to bind to that receptor site. I'm sorry about that. I don't want to mess that up. Telmisartan is one of the newer drugs out there, and usually what they recommend is whatever you've been using, if it's working to control your blood pressure, stay on it. This product, and I've done some research because a couple people have asked me about that in the past, does it help with blood sugar control? And the studies that I've read, I don't see it. It doesn't. It's not convincing. They're not sure. They don't know why it's happening. There's not much of it. If you have high fasting blood sugars, taking Telmisartan is not going to solve your problem. I can promise you that. Is it a good blood pressure medication? Absolutely. So, if you're going to use it for blood pressure control, fine. It's not something that you're going to take and say, oh, wow, great, now I don't have any blood sugar issues. I don't have to worry about it. That's not going to do that. But, once again, as a blood pressure medication, if your doctor wants to try you on that and it controls your blood pressure well, it's a good medication.
Let's go to our Instagram question. Look, if you're not already following us on Instagram, it's official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates. As mentioned already, all new episodes of Heavy Muscle Radio and the After Hours podcast. A lot of training-related questions. We love those. Let's go to 4-tier muscle. What's the deal with vertical leg presses? Why do they murder my lower back?
I don't know why people like the vertical leg press machine. That's the one where you're kind of laying down, you're pushing, the weight is like over your head and you're pushing up straight up. You're basically bent into a pretzel shape, so of course that's why it's hurting your lower back. You probably have some issues there. Anyway, but it's very dangerous too. And I'm going to tell you a story. My good friend Ron Norman, who you guys have seen on our TV shows before, he was in his house leg pressing, and he had good strong legs overhead on one of those vertical leg press machines, and one of his quads gave out and tore. The other leg tried to take the weight. That one tore. He tore both his quads. He was pinned under the machine. Thank God he didn't die. They had to get an ambulance. They had to take him out of there in a stretcher. It was a nightmare. It's not a very safe machine. Because you got this weight right over your head. You can set the pins and everything, but to me it's a dangerous movement. I don't really necessarily feel it in my quads. It's kind of like a very weird, like you said, you're in a bent over pretzel position. I don't like it. Guys used to do this back in like Arnold's day because they didn't really have leg press machines that were any good. So they had these sleds that they built. Probably Joe Gold built it, and they would use these things. But let's face it, the guys didn't really have great legs back then. I mean, the guys that had great legs are the guys who squatted, like Tom Platt. So my suggestion is, if you're going to use a leg press machine, use the complete opposite of a vertical. Use a horizontal one. I hope I'm not screwing up the terminology. What's the? I think the horizontal one's good. I'm talking about the good ones are the ones that go straight. I think the vertical one is up in the air, right? If I'm not mistaken, maybe Tyler can look it up so I don't sound like a moron. Now I'm guessing. Yes, yeah.
You had me guessing too,
yeah.
so yeah.
I like the horizontal one that goes straight out because even the 45-degree one, I feel like you don't really feel, in my mind, I don't feel it in my quads as much. I feel a lot of hamstring and glute on that one. So I like a straight leg press. I think it's the least dangerous, and I think it puts the most pressure directly onto the quadricep muscles.
Let's go to bodybuilding and wrestling. Dave, I know you're a big fan of 4 to 8 reps. I myself am doing 6 to 12. On the sets, when you can hit more than 12, should you stop at 12 and next time increase the weight, or do as many as you can to hit failure on all sets?
Yeah, no, I never do that. In other words, let's use bench press. If I'm going to bench press, if I know I can do 405 for 4 to 6 reps, that's going to probably be my last set. So if I'm going to do 135, 225, 315 before that, I'm not going to go all out because I'm going to burn myself out. I'm not going to be able to do 405 for as many as I can. So I'm doing 6 to 8 reps on these other ones just to kind of go through the movement, squeeze, but I don't want to bring myself to failure because then that's going to hamper or take away from what I'm going to be able to do on my last set. So yeah, you never go to failure on every single set.
Let's go to Savino Lewis. When should you worry about high liver enzymes, and what supplements do you recommend for high liver enzymes?
This question, it's been plaguing me since 1989 or 90. When I first went for blood work, I was trying to get in. I've told the story before. Tried to get into a hepatitis A vaccine study at my medical school, and they tested me, and I was completely 100%. I didn't even know what steroids were. I was completely natural, and they tested me. My liver enzymes came up high, and they thought, it's a hepatitis study. You can't have high liver enzymes before the study, right? So they ran a hepatitis panel on me. I didn't have hepatitis, obviously. And they disqualified me from the study, but no one really knew why. Thank God that's when I first met one of my mentors, Dr. Mike Kaufman, and he was a bodybuilder and a doctor. And I showed him my blood work. He was laughing. He's like, "These morons." He said, "I said, what?" He's like, "Weight training. These are not liver enzymes specifically. They're metabolic enzymes. They're found in all metabolically active cells in the body, meaning liver, muscle cells." So if you break down a lot of muscle tissue, and if you have a lot of muscle in your body, you're going to leak these enzymes into the bloodstream because the tissue the cells are breaking down. Matter of fact, if you have liver enzymes that are like 3 times the normal value, there's no way you'd have no liver left. There's no way your liver can even release that much enzyme. So you almost know when they're super high that it's always from muscle. The bigger the guy is, usually the higher the number you'll see. And a lot of these doctors just don't know, and they just get freaked out, and they think you got something wrong with you. I've seen doctors sending people for liver biopsies. I'm like, no, they're going to stick a needle in there. I said, if you really are paranoid, go for a liver sonogram. They can look at your liver. They'll know right away if there's any damage to it. But by and far, I see it. I read thousands of people's blood work, over the years. And I see high liver enzymes on, I'd say, 90% of the people's blood work that I see. And most of them don't take any orals. They don't drink alcohol. They have no reason to have high liver enzymes, and that's because they don't have really high liver enzymes. They're muscle enzymes. So you have to differentiate. Now, if you had a person who came to me who said, Dave, I have hepatitis C, I'm trying to check my liver, and they have high enzymes. Now I have to say, well, maybe there might be something here, because obviously you have an existing condition that could be a problem. Likewise, if someone's complaining of pain in their liver and they have high liver enzymes, they could have a tumor on their liver for all I know. So that's, in those cases, you have to check that out with a sonogram, with a follow-up, and possibly a biopsy. But for 98% of the people, I would say, who have high liver enzymes, it's probably just from working out. The only way to get those things down would be to stop training for 2 weeks, and that might not even do it. But usually if you stop training for like 2 weeks, your enzyme levels will drop down, because now the muscles are all healed up and they're not leaking anything into the bloodstream. But it's nothing to really be concerned about.
Philosophical question here. I know, in terms of for leg growth, your training philosophies, Relentless Luca wants to know, heavy weight or heavy volume more effective for leg growth?
When I talk about myself, lower volume, heavy weight worked really well for me. But I know guys that do higher volume with legs and get good results. So, I don't think it's one size fits all, so to speak. I think you have to see what works well for you. I'll tell you one thing, though. The guys that squat, full range of motion, heavy weight, good form, controlled negatives, they have the biggest, freakiest legs. So there's something to it, Does that mean that you can't do higher volume, and get legs? No, it doesn't mean that, but it means that for the majority of people who are not genetic freaks, because if you fit into the genetic freak category, like Vince Taylor, you can do 20-pound dumbbell curls and get 22-inch arms, But I couldn't do that, and the majority of people in the world couldn't do that. So what works effectively is, lower volume, heavier weights. And that doesn't mean Mike Mentzer 2 sets per legs. It means instead of doing 20 sets for legs, you do 12 or 13 maybe sets for legs, but good quality. If I'm doing 3 sets of extensions, I'm doing 4 or 5 sets of squats, because I got to build up to my heaviest weight. I'm doing 2 sets of leg press or hack squats, and I'm doing 3 or 4 sets of leg curls. I'm done. I'm going home after that. That's it. That's enough. If you're doing heavy weight, you shouldn't even want to do anymore. You should want to throw up after that. But a lot of people don't give 100%. They don't push themselves because it hurts too much. So they just do more volume, thinking that they can compensate for that by just doing more sets. And that's just not the case. When you first start working out, higher volume sometimes can translate to better mind-muscle connection and neural pathway development. But eventually, if you want to build mass, you have to really challenge those muscles.
But Ivan, bodybuilding, what would you do if your upper body was lagging behind your legs? If you competed in, say, classic physique, and the judges told you that you have a big imbalance, would your upper grow better if you laid the legs for a while and trained your upper body harder, or maybe more often too?
Yeah, I had really good legs, and in 1994, I think actually I did the Suburban Championships. I'll never forget. He doesn't forget either, because to this day, it always reminds me. Maz Ali, who's like the chairman of the New Jersey right now, he was weighing us in. And I weighed in, in my posing trunks. He's like, holy mackerel. He goes, your legs really came up from the last time I saw you. He's like, you should just stop training them and just work on your upper body now. Because my upper body was behind at that point a little bit. And I never forget he told me that. But you know what? I just in my head said, I'm not going to stop training my legs, and because they're a good body part for me, I'm just going to train my upper body harder, and I'm going to make those improvements. So yeah, I don't believe in not training a strong body part. Why would you want your strong body part to just be average? You don't want to bring you don't want to bring down your good body part. You want to bring up your weak body part so that you have great legs and a great upper body. So that, yeah, I don't buy into that. Try to be less than you are. Try to be more than you are.
Pantelis dermisakis, how to manage cortisol levels from everyday high stress levels so that it doesn't affect your body and overall health.
Sleep is the number one reason why people have high cortisol. They don't sleep enough, or they take too many stimulants. Usually it's a combination. You're taking too many stimulants because you're not sleeping enough, right? So get more sleep. That will lower your cortisol better than anything. And that's why I always tell people the week of a show, look, you can't be working a crazy shift. I have guys that go from like a 24-hour shift and they're going to weigh in on Thursday. I'm like, you can't do that. Your body's just not going to look good. You have to let your body sleep because high cortisol raises fluid retention. We know that. And it's really not even a fluid retention as much as it is a redistribution of the fluid. So instead of the fluid being inside the muscle and the skin being dry, it's like the fluid leaves the muscle and goes under the skin, and it just looks terrible. Sometimes we see that when people fly also, they have that kind of a reaction. And the best way to keep cortisol low is seriously and also, let me preface that, sleep, but don't overtrain either. Sometimes the people in a state of overtraining because they've been doing 3 hours of cardio a day for 6 weeks straight and never taking a day off from weight training, which is foolish, obviously. Their cortisol levels can just be crazy high because their body's overtrained and stressed out. So stress raises cortisol as well. So, that's why bodybuilders that have no job, all day, eating and watching TV and taking naps and, going to the gym and just relaxing, those are the guys that look the best. There's a reason why guys do it. It's not that bodybuilders are lazy. We're not lazy because all we're doing is bodybuilding all day. We're eating and we're training and we're going to the gym and we're doing posing. It's a very busy day. It's just you're doing everything related to bodybuilding and you're able to relax. If you have to go to a 9-to-5 job, obviously, it definitely puts a monkey wrench in that a little bit. But the best way to keep cortisol levels low, don't overtrain, and obviously sleep more. There's no supplements that's going to lower cortisol. Obviously, anabolic steroids and GH kind of negate the effects of cortisol to a certain degree because they're anabolic and cortisol is catabolic, but you don't want to be fighting that high cortisol in your body.
Let's go to Rick ATL. You mentioned peak week a couple of questions ago. Your opinion on creatine during peak week and on day of show?
You should never do creatine the day of the show. Never, ever, 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 because creatine requires liquid, to be absorbed. Obviously, the kidneys break down creatine. If you're taking creatine, and you're drying out essentially, and you're not drinking very much, you can damage your kidneys for sure. So, creatine's only ingested when you're hydrated. There was a couple, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, there was an article in the newspaper about the fact that a lot of wrestlers were using creatine and they were having, getting kidney infections and all kinds of kidney issues because they, wrestlers basically starve themselves and don't drink for like 2 days to make weight, which is not healthy, we know, but they do it, and then they were taking creatine and that was a problem. They were having a super high creatinine level. So you gotta be careful of that. I'm not really a big creatine fan, like before a show or anything like that, or trying to it's not gonna load, people think it's gonna make you look more volumized. Creatine's tricky because if you don't absorb it right, it can cause fluid retention under the skin. I cut all creatine out 2 weeks before. Matter of fact, I don't even use creatine with a lot of my guys, in the pre-contest phase. I only use it, off season, like post-workout. Some of the natural athletes I work with, they'll use creatine because, they're not using anything else. But I definitely don't use it. I always cut it out 2 weeks before a show.
Let's go to Excellent 187. Does the glycemic index matter in relation to trying to not get fat in the off season while upping the carbs? What is the best approach regarding carb selection and timing? I guess specifically he means for the off season.
If you're going to eat a lot of carbohydrates in the off season, you're probably better off eating lower glycemic carbs. Those are carbohydrates that require more digestion, have higher fiber content usually, and thus release less insulin, initially. So in other words, if you eat something that gets rapidly absorbed, you're going to crank out a lot of insulin. And if you're eating a lot of carbs and you're eating a lot of sugary foods or high glycemic carbs like breads and white rice, and you're overeating these carbs, you're going to release too much insulin, and then you have a much higher chance of storing some of those carbs as fat because you're releasing too much insulin. If you eat a lower glycemic carb that takes a couple hours to absorb slowly, even though the carb amount might be the same, you're releasing it into the bloodstream at a much slower rate. Your body releases insulin in a much more precise manner. It's not going to, the chances of it producing too much insulin is going to be very low. So you'll absorb all those carbs, but you won't produce extra insulin, which is potentially can store stuff as fat. So I usually have guys use lower glycemic carbs if I'm going to feed them a ton of carbs. If I'm going to only give them a certain amount of carbs, like maybe I'm giving a guy like 200 grams of carbs in the off season, that's really not excessive. I'll give them white rice and white potatoes because it doesn't matter, because I'm not giving them too much. So everything that's getting stored is getting stored as glycogen essentially. Once they hit that point where they're full, you know, and their glycogen stores are loaded, you don't want to be putting a lot of extra, you know, low glycemic carbs in. But like I said, I don't really give my guys in the off season tons and tons of carbs because I'm giving them enough protein and fat, so calorically they're very high already. So, but you know, I ate a lot of brown rice when I was competing because I had to eat a lot. I had to eat a lot of carbs, you know, because I had such a fast metabolism. I ate oatmeal in the morning and stuff like that. Usually I like to give the lower glycemic carbs earlier in the day too, because it gives you more sustained energy throughout the day. A lot of times guys will eat like these fast carbs like cream of rice in the morning, and then they're like crashing after like an hour or two. You know, their blood sugar is low and they don't feel like they want to go to the gym, because what happens is their body just absorbs it too quickly, especially if you're not eating fat. If you're, let's say you ate like you know, 15 egg whites or something like that with a bowl of oatmeal, you know, that's going to go through you in like 45 minutes to an hour. It's almost going to be all digested, because they're low glycemic carbs using the cream of rice and the egg whites. You know, that might not be a good, you know, pre-workout meal unless you're going to the gym like a half hour after you eat it, you know. But if you're going to eat and then wait 2 hours to go to the gym or something like that, or even an hour and a half, you might actually get low blood sugar at the gym at that point. So I might go with a slower carb, like oatmeal, for instance.
Time for a couple of more questions. Let's go to Ivan Banyanets. Your thoughts on tribulus during off period? Does it really increase your natural test levels?
You know, I don't think that there's one ingredient that we can say definitively increases testosterone that's naturally available. Obviously, if you use HCG, it's going to raise testosterone. But you know, we're talking about for natural supplements. So when I put together like, you know, Testalize, for instance, and I can only give you my example because I'm the one who made it, right? I knew tribulus does increase testosterone a little bit, but I also know that it's not that significant. The better way to increase testosterone is to actually reduce estrogen in your body, because estrogen is what shuts the body down from producing more of its own testosterone. If you can turn off the estrogen, you know, faucet, so to speak, there's nothing to shut your hypothalamus and your brain down, because estrogen is what binds to the receptors in the hypothalamus and tells the hypothalamus stop producing gonadotropic releasing hormone, which then prevents, you know, luteinizing hormone from being produced by the pituitary, which then shuts down the testicles. If you can block or get rid of some of the estrogen from the body, you're going to be producing more testosterone naturally. So, you know, combining tribulus with something, or even, you know, you know, I used diindolylmethane and indole 3-carbinol. Those are natural estrogen binding agents that pull estrogen out of the body. And then also blocking the conversion of testosterone into other stuff like DHT. And I use saw palmetto for that. That helps you have more testosterone available in your body naturally. Now, my friend, the guy who works for me downstairs, who helps me take care of the snakes I have, he was telling me that there's a lot of people in Florida that one of these, the way that, you know, people, you have people pick, in New York, people pick up cans, empty soda cans to get the deposits on them, and they turn them in at the supermarket, and they get like 5 cents a can or whatever it is. Like evidently people here, Cape Coral, they find these palmetto trees. They're like palm trees, and they pick the palmetto seeds. And I'm like, what the hell are they gonna do with palmetto seeds? He's like, oh, it's like that. They make an herb, saw palmetto, out of it. I said, oh, that's where the saw palmetto comes from? I didn't even know this. He's like, this is what he told me. And they sell the seeds. Now, I don't know what people use it for, but I found it kind of interesting. But yeah, saw palmetto, great at blocking testosterone to DHT conversion. Diindolylmethane, indole 3-carbinol, great at blocking, you know, or getting rid of extra estrogen. You know, D-aspartic acid and tribulus, good at elevating testosterone. When you put all this together, which is what I did in Testalize, you get a qualitative, you know, and significantly noticeable amount of testosterone increase in your body. And you can do blood work and check it out. You'll also see your estrogen levels lower and your DHT levels lower. So it's not just a one ingredient, one effect type of a thing. It's several ingredients creating a combined effect to give you what you're looking for.
David Jaworski, what do you think about taking MCT oil as carb-free fuel source before a workout? I feel energy boost, and also actually feel my body temperature warm up. I feel nothing from healthy fats except that it curbs my hunger.
Right. Well, yeah. Let's talk about what MCT or medium chain fats. Coconut oil happens to be one of them. There's some synthetic medium chain fats that they sell. I know John Perillo used to sell something called MCT fuel or something like that, or MCT oil years ago, and then it was Captree, his was, and then Twin Labs sold the I think he called it machine. I think Blackman called it machine oil or something like that. MCT machine oil, and it's good pre-workout because, or when you're going to train, because it's a fat that gets used as energy really quickly because it doesn't require a carrier molecule. So the MCT fuel will pass into the cell membrane or through the cell membrane because it's fat soluble. But then it doesn't require a carrier to bring it into the mitochondria of the cell, which is where it's going to get oxidized for fuel. So they call it the fatless fat because it kind of goes in very easily into the cell and gets used preferentially as fuel. Whereas essential fatty acids like polyunsaturated fats like omega-3s and 6s, or even your monounsaturated fats like your omega-9s like extra virgin olive oil, macadamia oil, those are long-chain fats. They require carrier molecules to get them into the mitochondria of the cells to be used for energy, so they don't get used as readily. So that's why when you take in healthy fats, which are good for your body, they're not going to be burned as fuel very quickly. Whereas if you take a source of MCT fat, it'll get used as fuel. The problem is a lot of people think, they're free calories. It's free energy rather. But we know that there's no such thing as free energy. If you go into the gym and you take MCT oil before you go, that's the fuel source your body's using. It's not going to dig into stored body fat. It's not going to deplete glycogen stores. It's going to use that. So you have to understand that the calories you're going to be expending or the energy you're going to be expending in the gym is not going to be from anything that's stored in your body. And usually when you're dieting, you want to mobilize stuff. You don't want to kind of use something else. Now, if you're dragging ass and you have no energy left and you're really low body fat already, there's nothing wrong with that. But understand that these are not free calories.
Before I ask this last question, do you watch Cobra Kai?
Of course, I love it. I've binge watched it for the last couple
All right,
years.
so Pipes wants to know, because obviously season 4 is coming out. The trailer's already out there.
Oh, I didn't even
What
see
do you
that.
think of the...
Really? Okay.
Yeah. What do you think of the return of Terry Silver? Do you think Cobra Kai will finally get a victory at the All Valley tournament this season?
Who's Terry Silver?
You don't know Terry Silver?
Who is that? What character is that?
Okay, we're talking about Karate Kid 3. Karate Kid 3. Remember?
Yeah,
So
I didn't consider that a
Kreese-
real Karate Kid installment, but yeah. Which one was that? Just remind me. I don't know. I think I watched it 30 years ago, Sid.
You need to rewatch.
I got to watch Karate Kid 3. That's
Otherwise,
the
you're
one.
not going to have context. So, yeah, Terry Silver was John Kreese's mentor, right? And his army.
Oh,
buddy.
right, yeah. Okay.
So
I
his
remember
old-
who he is. I remember who he is. Yeah, I remember.
Right. So the guy with the long hair,
Yes.
who fought, basically
Yeah.
unleash like this, alter ego of Daniel, so
Right.
turn him into an absolute monster or whatever. He's coming back for season 4. So the same actor too, because the same actor, there was rumors or whatever that he was never going to go back into acting again.
Right.
But he's coming back. I mean, literally, like the trailer, it's crazy. Like the guy hardly aged in like 30
Really?
years or whatever.
I talked to the guy,
yeah.
who plays Sensei, and I talked to him on the phone like 15 years ago. A friend of mine went to like one of these Comic-Con conventions and got an audition, got an interview, got a signature for me on a picture I have hanging in my office. Is it behind me here somewhere? Yeah, there it is, right there. Right up
I
there.
remember that.
Oh,
I remember
it's not
that
in the camera view.
Yeah.
Anyway, there it is, up there.
Sweep the leg. I remember that.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I talked to him and I said, "Would you, do you act anymore?" He goes, "No." He goes, "I'm done with that." So they got him back, obviously, too. He hadn't been acting, I don't think, at all. So I love the fact that I think Will Smith is behind Cobra Kai, right? If I'm not mistaken.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I think Will Smith is behind Cobra Kai. I think he brought that series to light. I think he produces it. Yeah.
Will Smith?
Yeah, Will
Really?
Smith. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Will Smith does it. You can.
I had to look that up. I didn't know that.
You can check that out. But yeah, he's behind a lot of good stuff out there. And you know what? The reason why that show is so successful and why I love watching it is because it's like a complete flashback to my childhood, because I was a movie usher in the movies. One of my very few jobs I had. I only had it 6 weeks because I got fired because I let someone in the back, one of my friends in the back door. But they were playing Karate Kid 2 while I was an usher. I must have seen the movie 6,000 times. And so when I see these characters that from years ago come back, I mean, it's like,
Yes.
it's like a flashback to your childhood. You want to see these characters and they do such a good job with it. They have the music they're playing from back in the day. If you're from that era, which obviously I am, you're kind of a little younger still, but it's amazing to see that stuff. It's great. They do. That's probably one of the best series that I've ever watched. In recent modern times, put it that way. I'd put it up there with like some of the best. Cheers. Even.
They did a genius job of bringing the movie back, the story back, paying homage to the old storylines, the old characters, without ruining it, without Disneyizing it, without adding some. They did such a perfect job. You're right. The music, some of the underlying music from the scenes from part 1 and 2 and 3. Some of the most subtle things, like when they show the high school, some of the things that they showed, that it's genius. The writing, the character development, absolutely genius. So I'm looking forward to it. But like I said, if you haven't, for you and for anybody that has not seen Karate Kid 3, you absolutely need to see it if you want to have a real proper perspective on the upcoming. Yeah,
I gotta watch it. But you know what they do is good is they show the flashback scenes from those movies. So even if you didn't see it recently, it will remind you, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah." So you kind of can follow along, which is brilliant on their part, because a lot of people haven't seen the movie. So at least you know what the joke is, so to speak, the inside joke is on
the best illustration of that I can remember is when they showed Johnny Lawrence's old Cobra Kai buddies. Remember? And there was the one that had cancer. So he actually passed away in real life too. Like literally a month after they showed him, pass away.
Wasn't he like a preacher? He was a preacher, right? He was a preacher in the priest.
No. The preacher was another one, but there was the guy who. Remember in part 1, he's the one that yells, "Get him a body bag." Yeah. That guy. He's the one.
He's the one who died of cancer in real life. Okay.
He died in real life of cancer like a month later. Yeah.
Wow.
So what was I gonna say? But when they showed like the 4 or 5 of the old Cobra Kai buddies, they showed like a flashback, literally of those guys lined up exactly what they were in today's character, as well as a scene from part 1. Like the way that they've done it is so like seamless. The way they brought it back from the 80s to now. But yeah, just to give you perspective, when part 1 came out, I was like 5, and that was in 1985. So yeah, like it's an entire generation of us. David Bay, David Bay. Me and him talk Cobra Kai all the time. He's a big fan. And I'm sure there are a lot more in the bodybuilding community. But yeah, no, I'm stoked for it. Season 4 is coming out at the end of this month, I believe.
Oh, really? Okay, that's soon. Excellent.
Either end of this month or January. But yeah, it's very near. But if you haven't seen the trailer already, check it out. I'm
gonna watch it right after we get off the show.
One more. Let's transition back into the bodybuilding world. This question is about Phil Heath from Chris Angeletti. Obviously, Phil Heath winning the Olympia 7 times. What if he had competed in the Aronld Classic? I mean, I know it's a bit of a stretch, but each year competed at the Aronld Classic, he won those. Would he have as many Aronld Classic titles as he does Olympia titles, in your opinion?
Oh, he probably would have won more, because I think that, the Aronld lineup is usually not as difficult as the Olympia lineup. The problem is that it's hard to do both sometimes and still look your best at the second event, which is the Olympia. So that's why a lot of the Olympia guys don't do it. I mean, the one year Ronnie won the Aronld in 2001, it might have been his best look of his career, actually. But when he hit the Olympia in 2001, he wasn't quite the Ronnie that we remember. He looked a little down in size, and that could have been maybe because he just put too much strain on his body that year. So I don't know. You never know. I think Phil could have easily won both titles probably for 7 or 8 years too. I don't see any reason why not. He probably could have gotten an extra Aronld out of it. But we'll never know because he didn't do it. Not many people. The only person, and a lot of people don't give her credit, the only person who's won a million, like a ton of Aronld titles and a ton of Olympia titles in a bodybuilding realm is Iris Kyle. I mean, Iris won 10 Olympias and about 8 or 9 Arnolds. I don't even know how many Arnolds she won. She'd probably yell at me because I don't remember. But and I know Adela won a lot too. But I think Iris is the queen of all that, and she was that just goes to show you how good she was and how dominant she was, because she was peaking twice a year every single year for well over 10 years. She was doing that. She probably did both those shows for probably 12 or maybe even 15 years she did that. Because remember, she didn't win every Olympia. She didn't win hers consecutively either. She lost one year to Yaksani, and she had a couple close calls there with Lender beat her one year. So you got to remember, what she accomplished is incredible. No man has been able to do that.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, if you have not already tried this product right here, Stimuli by Species Nutrition, highly recommend that you do so. I am not much of it, as you can very well imagine. I know we're going to see it in the comment section, but I'm not obviously a very big pre-workout guy, but this is freaking amazing.
But you know what? You're a big stimulant guy, though.
I'm a big caffeine guy.
Yeah.
I'm a big caffeine guy, and I can tell you this. I mean, usually when I have pre-workouts, pins and needles, body overheating, so on and so forth, and I just kind of cut it right there and then. But this, you don't get that. You get the stimulation, you get the elevated mood, you get the focus, the concentration, but you don't get any of the pins and needles. Your body's not going to overheat. It's not
a
very gradual elevation of mood, very gradual elevation of just your senses and overall. It's a top, and it tastes freaking amazing. I mean, it's like literal like a candy drink or whatever. It's really, really good. So I mean, Dave, hats off, you nailed it with this one.
By the way, Carlo Filipponi gave us a very nice review. I sent him a bottle of it, and he gave us a very nice review on his channel
absolutely.
there. So I want to just thank him for that. That was very nice of him.
So again, if you haven't really tried it, it's available right now at speciesnutrition.com. For Dave Palumbo and Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. Thanks for watching. See you next time.